teen years, so which would be 30 years later, when then the people that were the teenagers and early adults during that time of social upheaval become the majority in Congress. See, we had, in the 60s, we had, you know, the social and the sexual and the ecological revolution. We even had legislation like the EPA and so forth, but they all get watered down. And basically it comes back to making deals and business as usual. But by the 90s, he's predicting, again, we will have the 60s baby boom generation will be a majority in Congress, so that is a time when they think that there will be a legislation passed that will put teeth into a lot of these movements, including the environmental thing, which is, you know, forcing itself on everybody's attention anyway. So I think there are some helpful signs in that direction.
Nancy's halfway there with astrology. I mean, psychedelics.
Politics makes strange bedfellows.
Well, I need to say something about the high school. I take LSD and various psychedelics with a lot of high school children. And I've been scapegoated by the police in various communities as a threat, corrupting the morals of their children. And I have been in 2 torture chambers. One in Florida and one in Colorado for that. But what I wanted to say was that the law just put all drugs, including psychedelics, in a taboo thing. And a lot of the high school children, they're taking all kinds of drugs. And I've taken LSD that they have given me, and it's not real LSD, and it affects your nervous system, it makes you shake, it doesn't make you aware, it makes you dumb. And but they're buying LSD in high school anywhere from $2 to $8 a dose, and it's not real LSD. And I turned them on to real LSD, and they love it. And they play around with computers in class on real LSD that I've given them. And
well, you're a real menace to the youth.
But you're right.
They get great grades from real LSD. So what I'm saying is that somehow there has to be a real LSD distributed, real psychedelics distributed.
Well, what there has to be is an uncorruptible source of psychedelic experience.
Yes.
And, you know...
In a sanctuary environment also.
Well, in some way it has to be uncorruptible, and the best way that I've found is to urge people to grow mushrooms, because the mushroom itself then acts as the purity maintainer, the quality control. You can see what it is. When you have LSD in front of you, you have a little piece of paper or a little piece of gelatin. Who knows what this is, you know? And some way to extract the drugs from the market economy. This was what undid the 1960s. Some people got high on LSD, and other people realized you could make a fortune on it. And once that realization hit home, it was all she wrote. So there has to be, you know, some way of taking the opportunity to create a huge financial empire out of it. And how this is done, I'm not sure. But the simplest solution, I think, is grow your own and depend on nature. Nature is a bountiful storehouse. This is where these things come from, and
Grow or gather.
Grow or gather. Somebody over here. We haven't done much over here. This lady.
This question is for Terence. Can you speak a bit about your experience in some of the older societies you've lived in, and the relationship between visual artists, artisans, object makers, and shamanism?
Shall I repeat your question? The question was, could I speak about the relationship of artists to shamanism in some of the more the pre-literate Amazon societies that I've been in? Well, I think, you know, people have the notion about tribal people that their life is very hard. In some environments and some situations it is, But people try everywhere to create leisure for themselves and to have an opportunity for aesthetic expression. In psychedelic societies, everything is art. I'm thinking particularly of, for instance, the Shipibo in their classic expression. The Shipibo are an Amazonian tribe. They cover every utilitarian object with design. Everything is an expression of the images of the internal world, and language and puns and this sort of thing become very important. Life, when you have nothing, life is easily transformed into art, because there's a howness about everything. How you make a fire, how you cast a pot, how you cook a monkey. Everything is a paradigmatic activity, meaning everything is traditional, everything has been done millions of times before in the way that your people do it. And so the individual is seen almost like just the cutting edge of the ancestral energy. And they even have the concept of what they call the way of the ancestors. And so you'll be doing something like sharpening a stick, and someone will come up to you and say, "Don't do it that way. We do it this way. This is the way of the ancestors." Then they show you how to do it, and sure enough, it is easier to do it that way, probably because this is the morphogenetic field of the howness. And I think Ralph mentioned this morning the confluence of yoga, alchemy, and shamanism in the Taoist tradition. And I think it's worth stressing that, because to my mind, Taoism is the most refined ideal of human existence. It is open-ended. It always yields to a good laugh. It's not dogmatic. It's rooted in nature. It sees the world as shells of energy that can be manipulated and cultivated. And I really see Taoism as something broader than the nature religion that arose in southern China pre-Confucius and so forth. I see it as the kind of natural way of being in the world that tribally alive societies settle into. And it's what we're trying to recreate. Appropriate activity. That alone would create a world-informing revolution. When I say that we must change our minds, the physical accompaniment to changing our minds is that we will begin to behave appropriately, bury our shit, manage our resources, lower our voices. It's simply awareness, and awareness of awareness. And this is what these societies have that we have lost. And I think it's because the male ego is a wart on human perfection. And everybody has one. It's not a put-down of men. The male ego is a part of the repertoire of every human personality in the modern world. But it is unnecessary, divisive, and out of Tao. And this reconnection with the Tao, with the flow, with the invisible, the spirits, the energies of sky and water and earth, the psychedelics impel us into recognizing these things, but it's our own intent that can allow us to bring these things back into the world and apply them. So for me, that was the lesson of so-called primitive people. You want to talk about that?
Well, the only thing I would add to it would be that the male ego has come out of touch, but it can be reconnected. There's nothing inherent in that structure, that psychic structure or function in itself, The ego is simply that function that through which means of which we function in the world. What gets it into trouble is this thing of assuming that it knows the only reality, and it has claim to value over